GM, and welcome back to another video from GPT traders. This time we're looking at CFX, a cryptocurrency on the Bybit exchange. It's a perpetual futures contract with not a lot of history, as a lot of people would say. However, if we jump down onto a smaller time frame, we think there's ample history here to carry out a trade, and with price as to where it is currently, it's certainly an area of interest at the moment. The chart is already marked up with some zones of interest, and as I mentioned before, price is at a particular interesting point. I'll tell you why that we think is a zone of interest. You've got the initial introduction of the coin, it dumped massively, and then all of a sudden it pumped all the way back up, and then back down here. You can see that none of this area was touched or revisited. In fact, even this movement where started the big push up wasn't even revisited. So much so that when the price did break through, confirming this candle, it come back down only to retest this point. So we think that there is a good structure being formed on this chart, and I'll circle that out for you once again. We've got these areas here which are certainly points of interest, and where price is right now, that is a point of interest for sure. Now if I move on to the 4-hour time frame, you can see the same price action, but in a lot more detail. You can see how price has held these support zones, which is why we think a potential trade is coming up on this pair. Let me just quickly remove these pen drawings just to clean up the chart and show you where we think price could go next. So why are we looking at this chart right now? So it is at this point of interest here. I will also try to bring that to your attention in a different way. Price has respected these two structures. It pierced but did not fall a great deal, which is why we've got two horizontal lines. You've got the upper zone and the lower zone here, which if we look back to the left confirms the same price action in and around this space. So certainly in this box is a very good zone of interest. Now if I were to look at a potential entry, I'm certainly beginning to get interested in this chart right now. I would be looking for a best entry probably here. We look at target zones in a minute. So that will be my best entry, and a early entry would be on the top of this, with either there you could potentially be stopped out, but then probably need to have a bigger stop loss. So these are essentially two areas that we could position an entry point here. Price may not come back to this zone, and more than likely it is going to bounce from here. If you wanted to be quite conservative, a good place would be in the middle of the zone with a smaller risk to reward ratio and a higher potential. So that's essentially the entry points. Now where would we be looking for exits? So just by looking at this chart and looking left, we can see that there seems to be a barrier that price does not want to break through where these candles have printed. And if we continue looking left, we can see that the recent high, well in this coin's fact, it is the all-time high because it's just been newly launched. That is our next area of interest. So when I'm looking at take profit zones, this is probably a first area that price could reject, but that essentially is not what I'm looking at. Again, on a 4-hour time frame, I'm essentially looking at this perspective here. From a risk to reward perspective, yes, if price was on my ideal entry point, that is a good risk to reward of 4.56. But if my entry point was where price has just visited, then my target would be there. We are still looking at over 1 to 3, so that's not too bad, but my stop loss is a little bit too tight. Now if I drop down to the 1 hour time frame, price is a lot more clearer as to where it could potentially go. So you can see why I have marked out this initial take profit zone, but I'm not really comfortable with such a big stop loss here, so it might be best to have it midway. Again, that's a risky play, but from a risk to reward perspective, that's a lot more healthier. Or if I did want to not miss the trade, I would keep that with a bigger risk appetite. That's 1.1 to 1, or just under 1 to 2. Not really recommended. I would really reduce my trade size here and then look to ladder in potentially on this one once we've had a confirmation bringing up this stop loss. So there's two potential ways in how you could enter this trade. But from an exit perspective, we've got an early zone here on the 1 hour, but this is the one that we're looking to capitalize on, to really tap into this liquidity where price hasn't really reached. That would be my ideal trade setup on this one, and that's looking at a healthy 1 to 3.7 with a good stop loss range as well. Just wanted to post up this video for a quick analysis on CFX. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. Do like the video if you do like it. If you don't, tell us why. In the description below, you can join our community of traders. See you on the inside.